Today's poem is Du Fu's Dreaming of Li Bai, the first of two poems with the same title and the same topic. Now, before reading and talking about this poem, I think it is convenient to make a little reflection on the friendship of Li Bai and Du Fu, quite an unlikely relationship. From what we've already mentioned in the previous videos, you might guess, and you would guess correctly, that Du Fu and Li Bai are very different personalities, almost yin yang. So Du Fu fits the mold of the classicist Mandarin moralist. Li Bai, on the contrary, fits better the mold of the romantic and reckless rebel. They had very different lifestyles. Li Bai was recognized for his genius during his lifetime, whereas Du Fu was in relative oblivion. In their texts and in their social and political activities, they're also very different. You can see Du Fu living up to his ideal Confucian morality. He was expelled from a minor post in office because of a criticism he made of the emperor. Li Bai, on the contrary, was expelled from the Hanlin Academy because he treated, in theory, because he treated a eunuch haughtily, so emphasizing his own worth. The subject matter of their poems, as has been commented, is quite different. But in spite of all these things, tradition says, and we have no reason to really doubt it, that Du Fu and Li Bai were friends, at least as much as scholar officials that meet occasionally can be called friends, and they wrote many texts to each other, among them the two that we're going to be reading today and the next day. Two very different people. How can they get to be so close friends? Well, human nature is what it is. We might imagine that, both were very good writers and they both appreciated that in the other. And also, perhaps, they say that opposites attract. So, Tu Fu and Li Bai probably saw in the other poet the things that in a very deep place were also present in themselves. But anyway, let's go to today's poem then. Dreaming of Li Bai, number 1. And it says like this. Parting with the dead, one eventually stops sobbing. When parting with the living, sorrow never ends. You're exiled to Yeilang in Yangnan, a place plagued by malaria, and no news of you, old friend. But you enter my dream tonight, for you are always in my thoughts. You've been tangled in the nets of the law. How did you free your wings to fly here? It makes me fear this soul of yours is not of one still living. The road between us is too long to measure. When your soul set out this way, you could see the green maples, but when your soul returns, it will trouble through dark passes. As I wake, the sinking moon floods the roof beams with its light, and I stare about, half expecting it will shine on your face. Between us the water is deep, and the waves broad and tall. Don't let the water dragons seize you, my friend. Okay, so this is quite clearly the topic of this poem is separation. It's the typical poem on separation between friends, which is a staple fare of Chinese literature. It has an added component which appears in a lot of these poems, which is seeing the absent person in a dream, dreaming of the absent person. Now, about this convention, the Chinese believed that when you dreamt of somebody, it was, at least in some cases, because the soul, the spirit of that person was traveling to you in a dream. So they believed that while sleeping, part of your soul could manage to detach itself and travel around. And if it had a real reason to find somebody because of affection, it could visit another person's dreams. And this is what is being described here. So Du Fu believes that because of their friendship, Li Bai is visiting him in his dreams, although he is fearing another possibility as well, just that Li Bai might have died, and in that case, the soul free from the body can also, in an easier way, visit friends and relatives. Now, paraphrase of the poem, it's not too complicated, so it really doesn't need a translation into everyday speech, but basically it starts with an introduction in which Du Fu states that paradoxically, it's easier to live with parting from dead friends or relatives than parting from living friends. Probably because if someone has died, you resign yourself to the possibility of not, sorry, to the impossibility of being again with that person. Whereas if a person is alive, you always keep that hope alive. And that means the hope and the torment keep going on and on. Now, from the poem and from history, we know that Li Bai has been exiled to Jiangnan. That's in the extreme south, and that area, just as the poem says, had a reputation for a bad climate, the subtropical or tropical south, before modern discoveries of antibiotics and quinine and other products, was an area where the northerners, the people from the north, experienced a very high mortality rate because of tropical illnesses, basically malaria and other fevers transmitted by insects, especially mosquitoes. Why is Li Bai exiled? Well, we know that during the turmoil of the Al-Nushan rebellion, Li Bai got into the service of one of the sons of the emperor, I think a Prince Yong, and this Prince Yong more or less staged a rebellion trying to become emperor himself, and he was unsuccessful. And as usually happens in China in this situation, all the followers and civil servants that were with the rebel are also punished. So Li Bai is in the subtropical south. He visits in a dream Du Fu, who is afraid of him having passed away. The distance is very long, and the poem emphasizes how far away Li Bai and Du Fu are. We might imagine that at the time of composing this poem, Du Fu is at the court in Chang'an, so in northwestern China. And, after dreaming, Du Fu wakes up. He almost expects to see under the moonlight the reflection of his friend until he really appreciates how far his friend is. And the poem ends with a piece of advice which looks a bit cryptic. So, lots of water separate us. Don't let the water dragon seize you, my friend. So it probably is, the dragon is a symbol of the emperor. So it's probably a piece of advice like, make yourself amenable to the emperor, try to compensate for having served in a rebel's side, and don't let yourself be destroyed. I appreciate you. I want you to live, and I would like to see you again and to see you come back here to the court. Now, what else can we say about the poem? There is a very interesting reference that I liked a lot in one of the verses to the nets of the law. Yeah, you've been tangled in the nets of the law. Now, this is a quote. Du Fu, as we said, is more of a classicist poet, so he includes a lot of intertextual references to texts, which is something that a lot of Chinese poems used and abused. But Du Fu generally knows how to do it in a very subtle and adequate way so that it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel forced here, but tangled in the nets of the law. This is a quote from the Shi Jing, from the classic of odes, yeah, the nets of the law that force people to serve the government, to serve the king loyally, to avoid the nets of the law. Another thing that is interesting in this poem is the set of images that emphasize the big distance between the two poets. Remember, the topic of this poem is the separation of friends. So a big emphasis, a lot of images in the poem emphasize this big distance. So basically, how did you free your wings to fly here? Yeah, the road between us is too long to measure. And also, this is exemplified through sights. Yeah, when your soul set out this way, you could see the green maples. Probably it was still. This is a reference both to hour of day, but also probably even to season, like implied. Maybe you dreamt of me at a time of spring when there were still green maple leaves, but now You know, when your soul returns after having made the long trip here and now back, perhaps when you return, you will travel through dark passes. Yeah? It will be maybe dark, it will be winter perhaps. Yeah? So, quite a straightforward poem on a conventional topic, but I think it's, quite satisfactory. Quite satisfactory. So next day we'll continue with the second of the Dreaming of Li Bai poems, and we'll see how different or how similar it is to this one.